In this particular case, and this is also a very common business problem that most program directors typically face. And you've seen IT industry growing by leaps and bounds over the last couple of decades. Tech enterprises similarly has also seen a lot of growth, and a lot of this growth therefore requires people to be hired from outside, making sure that you have to have a very specific recruiting process. Madhuri's team currently has won a large business deal from a telecom major in the beginning of March 2021, right? And for making sure that she's able to deliver that particular project, she reaches out once again to Ritesh and tells him that she needs 12 people on board in her team as soon as possible, right? So it's she actually needs 12 people, so her team of 55 will end up becoming 67. But in the month of June 2021, she needs 5 team members, which is basically like 5 software engineers and 1 project leader, to start working on the first milestones of the project. She will need another 5 team members. She will need to ramp up the team with another 5 software engineers and 1 project leader by August 2021.
Everybody doesn't have to come at the same time, huh?
Not necessarily. So once she wins the deal, Madhuri will actually create a project plan saying what the deliverables of the project plan will be. They will have milestones. And these milestones will indicate saying how many people does she need to put on the team and what kind of people. So if it's a different phase, right? So she might not need business analysts later on in the project. She might need business analysts right up front. So those are the kind of profiles, and that's the kind of planning that Madhuri will have to do the moment she wins a project. So the project plan is created, which is basically a smaller part of the manpower planning that we discussed earlier. It's to a certain extent the same thing.
And to some extent that makes Ritesh's job a little easier. No, I am assuming, Varsha, that it's easier to get 6 people in June and 6 people in August versus getting all 12 in June.
That is true, right? But if you ever tell this to any recruitment person, he will probably laugh you out of the room, because no recruitment person's job is easy in the IT industry. Okay. There is always pressure, and there is always a requirement to hire the best possible profiles in a very specific budget, and we'll also come to that shortly. It's very, very important that Madhuri not just says what her requirements are, but really what her budget is.
Because you're recruiting from outside now. You're not looking at an internal candidate.
We are not looking at internal candidates. Yeah. But, honestly, JV, even if you're looking at internal candidates, you need to make sure your internal candidate is not very overly priced for the vacancy that you have. So, for example, in our earlier example, Ritesh could not have given her a project leader profile, somebody with 8 years of experience, to fill in a 5-year experience kind of a role. Just because that person probably can do much better, has more expertise, can probably already lead a team, is looking at other things. So that's how we look at it.
Who maintains control of this budget, Varsha?
Typically, at the beginning of the year, Madhuri and Vidya would have created a plan based on how they think the business is going to grow, right? So currently, if they say that Vidya's team is around 150 people, by the end of the year, it's going to grow to, say, 250 people. Another 100 people are going to come on board. That plan is created right upfront, saying that, okay, my revenues are going to grow like this month on month. This is what I see happening in quarter, not month on month, but quarter wise. And these are the kind of positions I will need to be able to deliver this kind of revenue. And that is the custodian of that, or, the person who is responsible for that would be Vidya. supported by Madhuri. All decisions will be taken by Vidya, saying that, okay, I can afford to have 100 people because I know my revenue is going to go up by this much and I know my profitability is going to go up by this much.
And the bench, maintaining the bench or the additional staff is also
that would be part of the manpower plan, saying that, okay, if I am going to increase from 150 to 250, most organizations have a certain kind of a percentage, 7% as bench. Okay. And that gets added on, saying that, okay, these 10 positions or these 7 positions will basically be my bench.
So when Madhuri wants another 12 people, basically she has to go and request Vidya to give her that budget from that additional 100 that Vidya was planning to hire this year, right?
That's right. Madhuri goes to Vidya and says, okay, I've got this new project. We have it in plan, but now I need you to specifically approve these 12 people out of the additional headcount that you have agreed to. Vidya looks at the plan and then gives her the approval. She might change a few things, saying that, you don't need so many people. There'll be some amount of negotiation between Vidya and Madhuri, saying what is the best profile. And based on that approval process, with Vidya's approval, Ritesh can go ahead and recruit from outside.
I see. So negotiating with Vidya is Madhuri's responsibility. But once that negotiation is done, then Ritesh takes over.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. And then what does Ritesh do?
So then this indent, this approval, right? So we're talking about the approval process. Vidya has approved indents for these 12 people to be hired. This is the basically start of the recruitment process flow, and that is what we have out here on this slide. It's a fairly simple process at a top level. The whole idea of this process is so that Ritesh can plan out the next steps and make sure that the process runs efficiently. The first one, as we said, is Vidya approving the indent. The second one would be to make sure that there is a specific job description for these approved indents. The third would be to figuring out.
Explain, Varsha, what you mean by a job description, right? You will explain that.
Yes, we will actually go through each of the processes.
Because what is an indent, what is a job? Okay, we will discuss it. All right. Mm-hmm.
We'll go through it in the subsequent parts also. The third one would be where candidates are sourced and interviews are scheduled. Once an interview is scheduled, you get a good candidate. You would want to, as an organization, roll out the offer, and then the person is onboarded. So this, in a nutshell, as I said, is the recruitment process, and there are metrics. There is data at each step which is analyzed, collated, and needs to get reported back to either Ritesh, Vidya, or Madhuri, as the case may be, to make sure that this process is going on smoothly.
And that will be interesting, Varsha, if later on you explain to us what kind of data gets generated and what decisions, as an example, Ritesh or Vidya or Madhuri would make based on that data. Okay, so I'm going to look forward to that.
Sure, definitely. We'll go through that in greater detail. Right, so this is.
So I think GV had some questions about each of the processes, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Right, so this, as we said, was the first step. So we call it sub processes. The first one is HR planning and the job indent, and we've touched upon this a little bit in the beginning. It would start off, as we can see out here, with an approved HR plan and budget, and this is what we mean by Vidya giving her approval for these 12 positions. Right? Ritesh then starts off this particular process and checks to make sure that it's already there in his recruitment plan. There are abilities that have been defined, skills that have been defined, and to make sure that this HR manpower plan that we had created right in the beginning has been updated with these 12 positions, and there are job descriptions that are there. Once these job descriptions are there, these positions are then reviewed, approved, and a revised plan and job intent is created. So what we're talking about here is the negotiation that basically happened between Vidya and Madhuri before we have an approval on the indent. Now, one of the things that we're talking about out here, which probably would be, a new, a little bit of a jargon that we're talking about, is a requisition or an indent. Which is now, what is a requisition or an indent? It's typically a form that is created by HR and that is used to tracking some of the data that will be required later on in the dashboard, right? So this is where the data begins. This is an input for the data. One of the things is what are the budgetary details, which basically means how many people can be hired, at what salary levels can they be hired. So can I hire 3 people at 3 lakhs, or can I hire one person at 9 lakhs, is what the budgetary details are basically about. What is the timeline of the position that is required? So in this particular case, Madhuri's case, we saw that we needed 6 people in June and 6 people in August. So there would be a broad level plan saying that in this quarter, Vidya's team is going to increase by 30 people. In quarter two, another 30 people. Quarter three is going to be a little low and will only have 10 people hired. So those are the kind of timelines that is there in the indent, saying that, okay, I need to hire this person by March. I need to hire this person by June. And there are certain specific contractual aspects that are also required in the indent. Is this position a full-time position? Is this position a part-time position? Can this be delivered by a gig worker? Or is it something that we have already on our third-party provider roles? A lot of IT companies, especially the product companies, work with third-party providers, and it would go on to a TPP role. Apart from that,
Varsha, this is like a very broad guidance to Ritesh, right?
Very broad guidance.
Actually identify whether to hire person X or person Y.
No. This is to make sure that there is one axis, which is basically the cost and the time is managed properly, right? The other axis, which is on the detail of what the position requires to deliver, is in something what we call the job description. And okay, and that's where we talk about the JD. It's called JD for short, and it's usually a quick summary, very quick summary of what is the role expected to do. Basically means what's the kind of problem solving that they have to do, what is the kind of knowledge that they have to bring along with them, what are the educational qualifications required for that particular role. So a business analyst will require expertise in a domain. So I need to know so if I need a business analyst for the financial sector, I would like to have somebody who's worked with an ICICI or an HDFC or any of the financial services organizations.
So Varsha, that day when you sent me all this data, see, this is a little difficult for me to understand. Okay, so I was thinking that day when you sent me the data, you had sent this sample JD. Maybe what I would request you is, maybe just explain this to us.
Sure. So
just hold on. Let me open the document itself instead of this slide. Okay.
Sure. So this is for one position, right? Not one person, one position, isn't it?
This is for a position.
Position. Okay.
This is
JD
for a
position.
Yeah, Varsha, maybe if you can just explain what this is to us, that will be useful. What do you say, JD?
Yep, I think that will help quite a lot. Yeah.
Right. So here we're talking about the position of an application security engineer in tech enterprises. You will out here see that there are certain primary duties. What is it that this application security engineer has to do? Conduct code reviews, develop and maintain unit and integration tests, conduct application security assessments, penetration tests, etc. This is what he's supposed to be doing. This changes. So for example, instead of a security engineer, we had a project leader kind of a roll out here. The primary duty would be to make sure that the delivery milestones are met, testing has been conducted, the customer has been managed, the customer or the client, and the client has been updated of the project. Um, of the project development, or saying what stage the project status is on. So that would be the primary duties. This is what the person is supposed to do. The second part would be the primary skills and requirements. This is in terms of any specific things that Madhuri say wants. Okay, she wants somebody who has an experience with certain development languages. uh, Very, this is absolutely necessary for her, and she would like somebody with secondary skills, somebody who also has some amount of experience with security penetration testing tools, as well as any other exposure required. Again, I'll go back to the example of a business analyst. So for business analyst, the primary skill would be, I need to know processes in the financial services. Secondary skills would be, okay, I know what's happening in this particular application domain. So those are the kind of things what we talk about: primary skills, secondary skills, and then some very specific position requirements, which is a little more of explanation of the skills requirement. One is, of course, the education qualification, saying that, okay, we need a bachelor's degree in engineering. This can be changed by saying we need an MSc in CA, or anything else, depending on what the position requires. And a certain more of, okay, these are the years of experience in application development and security, 5 years. Must be also from a softer skill perspective, must be able to communicate well, must be able to have certain kind of a presentation skills, has may have to deal with certain amount of senior executives. So both technical skills as well as software skills are then outlined, so that Ritesh knows exactly what to search for. So this position
So
requirements
basically, all these
is
keywords we are
what.
seeing here, Harsha, like Java development, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, or Metasploit, or whatever it is, all these things become search items for some database. Huh? They will be keywords
Absolutely.
that
Yes,
one would
there'll be
use to do some search.
keywords. Yeah. And they get rated based on whether they are primary skills, which is must-have skills, or secondary skills. So each resume profile, as you go through it, they'll pick up saying, okay, these many times Java development came up as part of the experience, and this algorithm gives recruiters saying that, okay, from a database of 15,000 applications, these are the, say, 1,000 applications that we need to look at more closely.
Okay.
There are challenges with some of the algorithms that are used. Sometimes, when these are very standard roles, it's easier to find these kind of profiles. But when there are specific roles, uh, the margin of error of an AI algorithm hunting out the correct profile for you is often quite high.
Can imagine that, yeah.
So my impression by looking at this JD, Varsha, and correct me if I'm wrong, this almost looks like some of the job advertisements that you see in newspapers or on the net, right? Only
Exactly.
thing is, it's a bit more detailed.
Yeah. So you would find, what is it that the position does, and the position requirements on all your job portals. Now, whether you go to a naukri.com or you go to LinkedIn and you see any of their job postings, this is exactly what you will get. You you might get a slightly different version of a job description that they use internally. They might use the job description for other purposes, in terms of competency management, in terms of skills development, at what level that skill is. But what comes up on social media is something like this.
Okay.